Welcome to Glass Half Full with Leslie Krongold. She shares her stories, experiences, and knowledge of living and coping with a chronic health condition. Learn about tools and resources and hear inspirational interviews that help you to live a life filled with quality and dignity. With 2 decades of support group leadership, Leslie's ready to help you make lemonade out of life's lemons. Are you ready?
Hello and welcome to my community. Well, I'm going to share a little about myself with you in this inaugural podcast, and hopefully you'll join me to become part of this community. Believe me, I don't want to spend all this time talking with myself. I'd much prefer a conversation with another human. And that's what we'll do for the future episodes. I'll have conversations with others, friends, caregivers, and other people coping with a chronic health condition, as well as practitioners and healers who have helped people develop positive coping tools. And eventually I hope you'll become part of this conversation and the community. I'm Leslie Krongold. I live in Northern California, and I'm originally from Miami, Florida. My journey has been a surprise. You don't really think about health problems when you're a teenager and young adult. You feel invincible most of the time. Saying I had a normal childhood really means little except in the context of now having a chronic health condition that shapes how and what I do every day. My health was generally good in my earlier life, and I'm grateful for that. Though many of the minor anomalies I experience now make sense as part of this slowly progressive genetic condition I have. But let me start with another part of the story and work backwards. I don't relish telling my story. I'm more the type of person that poses questions to others, asking about their story, and I tend to take a back seat. But I feel my story is perhaps relevant for you to understand how I came to launch a podcast called Glass Half Full, and why you might want to join me for this part of the journey. In my mid-30s, I distinctly remember going out to lunch with a work colleague, and as I grasped the door handle to get out of his car, my hand wouldn't release its grip. I don't think he noticed, but I certainly did. It was odd, and it harkened back to a memory from several years prior of my mother talking about difficulty with her wrists and grip. My mother had had many different ailments when I was growing up and spent time in hospitals for cataract surgery, gallbladder surgery, gastrointestinal stress, breathing problems, you name it. She also had a lifestyle of cigarette smoking and daily alcohol consumption that could have exacerbated her health. So suffice it to say, I was neither on top of each medical diagnosis nor hospital visit she had since I lived across the country. She had told me about a muscle condition which necessitated a visit to the University of Miami Medical School, where medical students observed her calf muscles. Apparently, one leg had less muscle tone than the other leg. I don't recall her telling me it was a rare muscular dystrophy, and I certainly didn't hear that it was hereditary. What I most remember is a phone call approximately 13 months before she died when my parents told me she had had a seizure, was rushed to the hospital, and eventually diagnosed with brain cancer, which metastasized from lung cancer. During those 13 months, I visited her a few times and talked with her frequently. My father never mentioned the doctors knew she would die within a year. I thought the radiation treatments and drugs were to help cure her. Of course, this is nearly 25 years ago. So when I reached for the door in my friend's car and couldn't quite release my grip, I remembered my mom. Now, I can't recall how soon after that experience I went to see a doctor. Maybe I had a few more experiences of difficulty releasing my hand grip. The next point would be a visit with my HMO's general practitioner. I had seen her maybe once or twice before. I probably thought she seemed like a good doctor with whatever minor issue I'd presented her with. Well, after her cursory check of my hands and muscles, she scheduled me for blood work panel to see if I was nutritionally deficient. These tests came back negative, and then she scheduled me for a visit to a neurologist, a brain doctor. I don't think my public school education included much study of human anatomy, and my college study of filmmaking certainly didn't cover neurology. Well, my memory of the next few steps is muddled. How many times did I see the neurologist until she had a definitive diagnosis? I'm not sure. That definitive diagnosis included a DNA test, which resulted in confirmation that I had a rare disorder called myotonic dystrophy. Seeing the results on paper didn't emotionally penetrate me, but the diagnostics leading up to the DNA test is what I most remember. The EMG, and an EMG is an electrodiagnostic medicine technique for evaluating and recording the electrical activity produced by skeletal muscles. And this was accomplished by the neurologist inserting a needle into several of my muscles, mostly different parts of my legs, and listening for extended bursts of electrical discharges that are indicative of abnormal electrical signals associated with the slowing of muscle relaxation. So I lay there, in an uncomfortable paper gown, and this specialist is probing my body with needles, and I heard these very disturbing sounds. And the neurologist, who was a very young and super smart woman, got excited. It must be like finding those key puzzle pieces to solve a mysterious puzzle. Eureka! I have identified your rare condition. And whatever words she used to explain this epiphany to me, I don't recall, but I do remember a feeling of, your life is not what you expected it to be. And I know I stifled a few tears, and I remember wondering if she was aware of how this moment was impacting me. After that, I'm sure I shared the news with a few friends, but I can't remember anyone's reaction really. My everyday life was essentially the same. I worked a lot. At that time, I was an educational multimedia producer, and my work life involved a lot of travel across the country. My father's reaction to my diagnosis was a few notches short of empathetic. He claimed to have talked with doctors that reassured him I had nothing to worry about. My life would be normal. I didn't know anyone with myotonic dystrophy, but I was aware that it was one of the many neuromuscular diseases covered by the patient advocacy organization, Muscular Dystrophy Association, or MDA. Who in America hadn't grown up with the annual Jerry Lewis Labor Day telethon to raise money and awareness for children with neuromuscular disease? Some of the areas I've explored include diet, yoga therapy, acupuncture, Pilates, aromatherapy, meditation, and qigong. But that's just me. Let's hear about what works for you. What helps you maintain a glass half full perspective? I hope you've heard something during this first podcast that has whet your appetite and inspires you to keep tuning in. I invite you to become part of the conversation and community by visiting our website, glasshalffull.online, and the Facebook page for Glass Half Full Online. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to Glass Half Full. Leslie invites you to leave a rating and review on iTunes. This helps spread the word to others dealing with chronic health issues. For show notes, updates, and more, visit the website glasshalffull.online. glasshalffull.online.